Job was responding to the three friends. The three friends have all had their chance to speak, and Job, in his answer, starts off, "You are the people, and with you wisdom will die." So he takes a sarcastic tone with these people. He's tired of their reiterated condemnation that he's done something wrong and that's why he's suffering and that's why he has lost everything. And so in verse 12, Job speaks of God's strength. He is responding to God. He wants God's approval. He no longer wants the friends' approval because he realizes he's not going to get it. All he's going to get is condemnation. And so he's saying in this little section that God is in control of everything. And this is something that we subscribe to. We believe that God is in control. Even when things seem to be out of control and we're not sure what's happening or what's going to happen, we still believe that God is in control. And so Job is speaking to this particular topic. Verse 13, with him are wisdom and might. To him belong counsel and discernment. A very clear example of Hebrew poetry here. The first statement, with him are wisdom and might, is contrasted with the next statement, to him belong counsel and discernment. And so it's to God that we need to look for wisdom, not the wisdom of the friends, which was fixed on the idea that God rules the world in justice and that when you are prospering, it's because you've been obedient to God. When you're suffering, it's because you've sinned. So they are trying to pin that on Job, and he's resisting it. Verse 14, behold, he pulls down, and it cannot be rebuilt. He closes a man in, and it cannot be opened. So whatever God does fixes things, and you can't alter it. Behold, he restrains the waters, and they dry up, and he sends them out, and they overturn the earth, or they flood the earth. So God either holds the waters back or lets them flood. That's one of the things that the climate change people need to recognize today, that God is in control of the waters, even though they believe that ultimately, or really in the short term, they always say in the next 12 years. But they've said that 3 or 4 times already, so they're obviously guessing and trying to scare people into following their climate change policies. Verse 16, with him are strength and sound wisdom. The misled and the misleader belong to him. They're both under his control. Now, in a series of statements, he shows that he's in control of every authority. He makes counselors walk barefoot. The King James Version has walk stripped. He makes fools of judges. He opens the bond of kings and binds their loins with a belt. The bond of kings is the discipline of kings. And so he gives the king this power of disciplining, binds their loins with a belt, their source of strength. He makes priests walk barefoot and subverts the enduring ones or the mighty ones. He removes speech from the faithful and takes away the discerning taste of the elders. He pours contempt on nobles and loosens the belt of the strong. So if you look at the list of authorities here, counselors, judges, kings, priests, the mighty ones, the faithful, and the elders. They're all under God's control, and they don't recognize it. Verse 22, he reveals mysteries from the darkness and brings the shadows of death into light. He makes nations great, then makes them perish. He enlarges the nations, then leads them away. He removes the heart of wisdom from the heads of the earth's people and makes them wander in a pathless waste. And so they think they have wisdom, and all of a sudden they're thrashing around wondering where to go, which path to take. They grope in darkness with no light, and he makes them wander about like a drunken man. And so the foolish mistakes of world leaders are because God has let them follow their own advice. And some of the most foolish things are uttered by world leaders. And they lead their nations into all kinds of stupid paths. And we see that repeated over and over. Some of the countries with some of the richest assets in the world are floundering about with broken economies. And God knows this, and God is still in control. And so sometimes the best way to educate your children is let them do something which they've begged to do and you know will not end up well. But they insist that they'll have it in control and everything's going to be okay. You let them do it, and they come back and they weep on your shoulder and say, you were right, we shouldn't have done that. And this is how people need to listen to God and lean on God's understanding, not on their own. The book of Proverbs is a collection of wise sayings, and through all of them there's a common thread that if you do what God has commanded, God has laid down, then you're wise. You go the way of the world because it seems like they're highly successful and everything's going to fail. But now in chapter 13, Job is going to uphold his righteousness. And he's going to say, in effect, I will be declared righteous. But he starts off with a bit of indignation at his friend's speeches. And he says, behold, my eye has seen all this. My ear has heard and understood it. What you know, I also know. I have not fallen short of you. In other words, I'm in no way behind you in understanding. And yet the friends are saying, we know what's going on and you need to own up, confess your sins, and get back in the right relationship with God. And so the friends try to defend God on the ground of the false theology, the lie that they have accepted. And they just don't know enough, or they haven't researched enough to see that sometimes the wicked prosper and sometimes the good people suffer. Verse 3, I would speak to the Almighty, and I desired to argue with God. But you cover me with lies. You are all worthless physicians. In other words, they're trying to heal his spiritual condition, and he says, you're rubbish physicians. You're no good at all. And in this, Job almost begins to sound arrogant, that he's stepping out of line. I want to discuss this with God. I want to put my case to God, let me speak and let him respond, or let him speak and I will respond, is the attitude he's taking. Verse 5, oh, that you would be completely silent and that it would become your wisdom. So your silence is better than your so-called wisdom or understanding. Please hear my argument and give heed to the contentions of my lips. Will you speak what is unrighteous for God and speak what is deceitful for him? Will you show partiality for him? Will you contend for God? They deny that there's any exception for Job. They deny that in spite of all their accusations, Job is actually without guilt at all. And we know that from the first chapter, that Job was blameless and that God had allowed Satan to test Job. They didn't know this. So they don't have all the information on which to make any kind of judgment. But they go ahead anyway because they know. And there are always people like that, in spite of what you say, I know, or we know. And this was the case of the three friends. Will it be well when he examines you, or will you deceive him as one deceives a man? He will surely reprove you if you secretly show partiality. Will not his exaltedness terrify you, and the dread of him fall on you? Your memorable sayings are proverbs of ashes. Your defenses are defenses of clay. And so the theological position they've taken is made of ashes or clay, insubstantial, couldn't stand up to real examination. So now Job expresses confidence in his godliness and righteous life. Be silent before me so that I may speak. In other words, he's saying, hold your peace. Then let come on me what may. Verse 14 is really, we're uncertain about the meaning of this particular verse. And there are verses like that throughout Proverbs as well. Why should I take my flesh in my teeth and put my life in my hands? Maybe he's saying, consider or face the issue and its consequences, even if that means death. So I take my flesh in my teeth. In other words, what I'm going to say might hang me, but I need to say it and just take the consequences. Verse 15, though he slay me, I will hope in him or trust in him. Nevertheless, I will argue my ways before him. I have a case to present to God, and I want to argue it before him. This also will be my salvation, for a godless man may not come before his presence. Listen carefully to my words, and let my declaration fill your ears. Behold, now I have arranged my case for justice. I know that I will be declared righteous. Who will contend with me? For now I am silent and will breathe my last. If I'm allowed to present my case before God, then maybe my end will come. But I need to present my case. I can't just accept what you say, because I know that your accusations are false. So he was sure of his righteousness, and we can see that assurance because whenever his sons may have done something wrong, he offered sacrifices for them. So we have to assume that he also regularly offered sacrifices for himself as well and his wife. Now he's pressing his case before God. Verse 20. Only two things do not do to me, then I will not hide from your face. And we're unsure what the two things are, because he is going to mention several things in the next few verses. Move your hand far from me. In other words, stop the pain. This is one thing that he can hardly stand. Let not the dread of you terrify me. Then call, and I will answer, or let me speak, then respond to me. How many are my iniquities and sins? Make them known. Make known to me my transgression and my sin. And so he's ready to face whatever he's done wrong. He's unaware of what it is. Maybe God has some knowledge of something he's done that he's missed out on. He doesn't know what he's done wrong. Why do you hide your face and think of me as your enemy? Will you cause a driven leaf to tremble, or will you pursue the dry chaff? In other words, are you going to continue harassing me? Let me answer for my sins and be done with. 26, you write bitter things against me and make me to possess the iniquities of my youth. And so maybe you're bringing up things that happened in my youth when we're apt to make many indiscretions. But tell me, you put my feet in the stocks and kept watch over all my paths. You set a limit for the soles of my feet, while I am decaying like a rotten thing, like a garment that is moth-eaten. So his condition is really wearing on him. And he'd rather know what he's done wrong and get all of this done with. Let's get it solved, sorted out. And so in chapter 14, Job is going to make his concluding complaint. Man who is born of woman is short-lived and full of turmoil. Like a flower he comes forth and withers. He also flees like a shadow and does not stand. In other words, life is very short. Even after you've lived a long time, you look back and you think, wow, the time flew from me. And you regret the things that you thought of doing, which would be good, and didn't do. Perhaps you didn't feel you have the time or whatever, but life is very short. You also open your eyes on him and bring him into judgment with yourself. He's really asking why God brings a weak and an insignificant man into judgment. Why me? I'm not worth all this attention. Who can make the clean out of the unclean? No one. And he's not talking about inherited sin at all. He's just talking about somebody who has actually become unclean through what he's done. Since his days are determined, the number of his months is with you, and his limits you have set so that he cannot pass. Turn your gaze from him, that he may cease from toil, until he accepts his day like a hired man. Man has limited days, and because he has so few days, Job is asking that God stop examining him so he can live in peace like a hired man. The higher up you have, the more responsibilities you carry, and the lower down the ladder you are, the simpler your life. And so he'd like to live in peace like a hired man and have God turn his gaze away from him. Man's hopelessness, verses 7 to 12. There is hope for a tree when it is cut down, that it will change back, sprouting again, and its shoots will not cease. Though its roots grow old in the ground and its stump dies in the dry soil, at the scent of water it will flourish and put forth sprigs like a plant. So there's always hope for a tree. The trees are very hard to kill. I've seen huge gum trees in South Africa that were sawn off just a couple of feet above the ground. And after a few months, sprouts begin to come out of that stump and grow again. And so trees are going to grow again, but we're not going to grow again. And so he says, man dies and lies prostrate. Man breathes his last, and where is he? As water evaporates from the sea and a river becomes parched and dried up, so man lies down and does not rise. Until the heavens are no longer, he will not awake or be aroused out of his sleep. So if I were a tree, I would have some hope. But I'm a human and I have no hope. Oh, that you would conceal me in Sheol, which is the grave, or the underworld. That you would hide me until your anger returns to you. That you would set a limit for me and remember me. If a man dies, will he live again? All the days of my labor I will wait until my change comes. You will call and I will answer you. You will long for the work of your hands. For now you number my steps. You do not keep watch over my sin. And so God may keep account of all your sins. Yes. Yes.
What change did they expect back then?
I think he believes that there is going to be some relief from death. But I don't think they understood much about it back at that time. A lot of things have been revealed over the millennia, and we're in a position where we can look back with our understanding, and we see this man and he's kind of floundering around, wondering why this has happened to him, and wondering whether it wouldn't be better to be in Sheol, which is a kind of a dark and dreary life, but it's one apparently without pain. But you realize that you're cut off from the living and you wonder what will happen. So he'd rather be in that state than in the pain that he has endured this far. So he's hoping for a change to come. Maybe it's just a change from life into Sheol. Verse 17, my transgression is sealed up in a bag, and you cover up my iniquity. So he just feels hopeless. Whatever I've done wrong, you've got it bagged up, and nobody knows what to do with it. So he just has to endure this. The falling mountain crumbles away The rock moves from its place. Water wears away stones. Its torrents wash away the dust of the earth. So you make man's hope perish. So no matter how strong it may be, all the strong things in creation are gradually just going to wear away. And so I don't have the strength of the rocks and the mountains, but I'm wearing away. And he feels that most keenly. So you forever overpower him, and he goes away. You alter his appearance and send him away. His sons achieve honor, but he does not know it, or they become insignificant. He does not perceive him. But his flesh pains him, and he mourns only for himself. So he's now coming to a conclusion about his life. It's wearing away, and there's nothing I can do about it. So after Job's speech, Eliphaz the Temanite starts a new round of discussion. Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, "Should a wise man answer with windy knowledge and fill his belly with the east wind? Should he argue with a word that cannot be used, or with speech which is not profitable? Indeed, you annul reverent fear and cut off musing before God, or prayer or meditation before God. Your iniquity teaches your mouth. You choose the tongue of the crafty. Your own mouth condemns you, and not I, and your own lips answer against you." And so Eliphaz is really lighting into Job, and in a very unkind way. He's insulting him in every way he can. So these friends who had come to comfort him and help him have proved to be accusers who are really trying to bind sins on him that Job knew nothing about, which he had not in fact committed. But they were working on the principles of their theology. If you're suffering, it's because you sinned. If you're doing well, it's because you're righteous. And what do we see in Job? Ultimate in suffering. And so he must have done some terrible sin. And he just needs to confess it and get over it. He now says, "Were you the first man to be born, or were you brought forth before the hills? Do you hear the secret counsel of God and cut down wisdom only unto yourself?" Are you the only wise person here that you know better than we do? What do you know that we do not know? What do you understand that is not with us? That's the friends. So we three, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, do you think you know better than us? Both the grey-haired and aged are among us, older than your father. And so, we're, all the grey-haired people here get together. We're the wise ones. We know everything. We've been here so long that nothing is hidden from us. So do you think you're better than we are? Are the consolations of God too small for you? Even the words spoken gently with you? He's referring to the three friends discussion. Why does your heart take you away? Why do your eyes flash, that you should turn your spirit against God and allow such words to go out of your mouth? What is man that he should be pure, or he who is born of a woman that he should be righteous? You're human, So therefore, it stands to reason that you're sinful. And that's why you're suffering. So he's trying to ridicule Job instead of answering the questions that Job has put. Behold, he puts no faith in his holy ones, and the heavens are not pure in his sight. How much, how much less one who is abominable and corrupt, man who drinks unrighteousness like water. And so this emphasizes Eliphaz's theology. Now Eliphaz is going to talk about the state of the wicked. I will tell you, listen to me, and what I have beheld, I will also recount. What wise men have told, and have not concealed from their fathers. To whom alone the land was given, and no stranger passed among them. The wicked man writhes in pain all his days, and numbered are the years stored up for the ruthless. And so the ruthless people, the awe-inspiring, terror-striking people, they have numbered years. They're not going to live forever. Sounds of dread are in his ears. While at peace, the destroyer comes upon him. He does not believe that he will return from darkness, and he is destined for the sword. And so all of these are definitions of the wicked and revelation of what will happen to them. He wanders about for food, saying, where is it? He knows that a day of darkness is ready at his hand. Distress and anguish terrify him. They overpower him like a king ready for the attack, because he has stretched out his hand against God and magnifies himself against the Almighty. So that is why all of these things come upon the wicked. That's their state. And these things must apply to Job. He must have stretched out his hand to God. He must have magnified himself against God. He rushes headlong at him with his massive shield, for he has covered his face with his fat and made his thighs heavy with flesh. So this is the condition of the sinner. He has become wealthy by whatever sins he has been committing. Then another aspect of the condition of the sinner, he has dwelt in desolate cities, in houses no one would inhabit, which are destined to become ruins. He will not become rich, nor will his wealth endure, and his grain will not stretch out over the land. So this is the state of the wicked. This is why, Job, you have lost everything you had, and you have nothing left. Verse 30, he will not be able to depart from darkness. The flame will wither his shoots, and by the breath of his mouth he will depart. Let him not believe in emptiness, deceiving himself, for emptiness will be his reward. Emptiness is another way of expressing vanity or falseness. And so when his days are not yet fulfilled and his palm branch is not green, he will drop off his unripe grape like the vine, and will cast off his flower like the olive tree. So this is going to be the state of the wicked and his end. And so it's coming, and you know this very well because of your condition. The company of the godless is barren. Fire consumes the tents of the corrupt. They conceive trouble and give birth to wickedness, and their belly prepares deception. So, in this poetic way, he has outlined the state of the wicked. And Job is now in the conditions which indicates his wickedness. Job speaks again in chapter 16. Job answered and said, I have heard many such things. Troublesome comforters are you all. Is there no end to windy words? Or what pains you that you answer? I too could speak like you, if your soul was in the place of my soul. I could compose words against you and shake my head at you. I could encourage you with my mouth, and the solace of my lips could lessen your pain. And so Job says, I know what you know. And he's being dismissive in the way that he talks to these friends. You're not adding anything to me. You're no use to me at all, because I could have done everything you've done. And so maybe Job recognizes the theology of the friends and might even agree with it, but he recognizes that there is something different in his case. Job is going to make in the next few verses a series of uh, accusations against God, and he is speaking without full knowledge. He doesn't understand what God is doing or why God is doing. And so in verse 6, he says, if I speak, my pain is not lessened. And if I cease, what will go forth from me? For now he has exhausted me. You have made desolate all my company. You have shriveled me up. It has become a witness, and my leanness rises up against me. It answers to my face. His anger has torn me and hunted me down. He has gnashed at me with his teeth. My adversary sharpens his eyes to look at me. So these are complaints against God. And I think in extreme conditions, we do feel as if God has forsaken us. And we often say things, even if we're just speaking internally. We're complaining that God shouldn't be treating me this way. Surely I'm useful to God. Why are you ignoring me, or why are you handling me in this way? They have opened their mouth wide at me. They have struck me on the cheek in reproach. They have massed themselves against me. God hands me over to ruffians, tosses me into the hands of the wicked. I was at peace, but he shattered me, and he has grasped me by the neck and shaken me to pieces. He has also set me up as his target. So Job feels that God has broken him down into little bits, and there's nothing he can do. His arrows surround me. Without mercy, he splits my kidneys. The Authorized Version has reins, quite universally through the book of Job. They're talking about kidneys. The Authorized Version has reins, which is how what they considered them in the 1611 King James. He pours out my gall on the ground. He breaks through me with breach after breach. He runs at me like a warrior. I have sewed sackcloth over my skin and thrust my horn in the dust. In other words, I have reduced my strength to nothing. My face is flushed from weeping, and the shadow of death is on my eyelids. Why? Because though there is no violence in my hands, and my prayer is pure. Job's only hope for vindication is his witness in heaven. O earth, do not cover my blood. Let there be no resting place for my cry. Even now, behold, my witness is in heaven, and my advocate is on high. My friends are my scoffers. My eye weeps to God. Oh, that a man might argue with God as a man with his neighbor. For when a few years are past, I shall go the way of no return. And so his only hope is in heaven. And God will respond to Job. God will not solve the problem for Job, but he will show that there are things which are just beyond Job's understanding. And so even though he looks for a solution to the problem of his suffering, he doesn't find it. He just learns that the world is a dangerous place and we are put here and may encounter bad things even though we're good people. And we shouldn't question God for why it happens. And so everybody suffers at some time or other. I don't believe there's a person in the room that hasn't suffered in some way. And so we have to accept that position, not complain about it, and just do the best we can. In as Job's fourth speech continues in chapter 17, my spirit is broken. The spirit here, the King James has breath. It's the ruach, which is the major Hebrew word for spirit or person even. My days are extinguished. The grave is ready for me. Surely mockers are with me, and my eye gazes on their provocation. So this is what he calls the friends, mockers. They have not turned out to be what they were said to be at the beginning. Establish now a pledge for me with yourself. He's asking for assurance from God. Who is there that will clap my hand in pledge? The ancient way of making a pledge was for the two people to clap their hands together, one of the ways. Another way to make a pledge or a covenant was to, as the Hebrew expression, make a covenant is actually cut a covenant. We translate it, make a covenant. But what they would often do was take an animal, split it in two, and the two people would walk between the halves of the animal. And that was cutting a covenant. I don't know why that was significant to them, but that's just the way they did it. We write a lot of words on a piece of paper and scribble something at the bottom which is supposed to represent our name, and we've agreed to a covenant, or we've made a covenant. This may not have made as much sense to them back then as our impression of them walking between the halves of an animal, or even just clapping their hands. We often shake hands, and the shaking of a hand is regarded as a covenant. So my spirit is broken, my days are extinguished, the grave is ready for me. Surely mockers are with me, my eye gazes on their provocation. Establish now a pledge for me with yourself. Who is there that will clap my hand in pledge? You have hidden their heart from insight. Therefore, you will not exalt them. He who informs against friends for a share of the spoil, the eyes of his children will also come to an end. So he regards the friends as informing on him. I don't know what share of the spoil they expected, but they just thought that this would show their righteousness, I guess. He has made me a byword of the people, and I am one at whom men spit. My eye has also grown dim because of grief, and all my members are as a shadow. The upright will be appalled at this. The innocent will stir up himself against the godless. Nevertheless, the righteous will hold to his way, and he who has clean hands will grow mightier and mightier. Despite whatever happens, the righteous are going to get stronger and stronger. But come again, all of you now, for I do not find a wise man among you. And so he's saying, bring on another attack. I'm ready for you. My days are past, my plans are torn apart, even the wishes of my heart. They make night into day, saying, the light is near in the presence of darkness. This may be the friend's way of saying that this is what will happen if you repent. The light is near. Even in the presence of what they regard as evidence of his sin, the light is near. If I hope for Sheol as my home, I make my bed in the darkness. If I call to the pit, you are my father, to the worm, my mother and my sister. The pit is a place of destruction or decay. And so if I call the pit my father and the worm mother and sister, where now is my hope? Who beholds my hope? Will it go down with me to Sheol? Shall we together go down into the dust? And this is an indication probably of Job's utter depression. No, there's nothing left for me but the grave. And he's seeking for some kind of redress. He's seeking for some kind of an opportunity to discuss this with God. And he finds no way of discussing it. And the friends keep on piling on these accusations of his guilt. And so the next one to pile on is Bildad. This is Bildad's second speech in chapter 18. And Bildad says, how long will you put an end to your words? Show understanding, and then we can talk. Why are we regarded as beasts, as dense in your eyes, or stupid in your eyes? O you who tear yourself in your anger, for your sake is the earth to be forsaken, or the rock to be moved from its place? So Bildad is saying there's an established order here. Is this established order the justice of God? Is this to be altered just for you because you don't want to admit your sin? How long is this going to go on? The light of the wicked goes out. The flame of his fire gives no light. The light in his tent is darkened. His lamp goes out above him. His vigorous stride is shortened. His own counsel brings him down. He is thrown into the net by his own feet, and he steps on the netting. A snare seizes him by the heel, and a device snaps shut on him. A rope for him is hidden in the ground, a trap for him in the path. All around terrors frighten him and harass him at every step. His vigor is famished, disaster is ready at his side. The firstborn of death eats parts of his skin, it eats parts of him. He is torn from the security of his tent, and they march him in step before the King of terrors. There dwells in his tent nothing of his. Brimstone is scattered on his abode. So that's brimstone is a sulfurous flame. And so all of this is the lot of the wicked. And it's not hard to see that Bildad is trying to say this of Job. This is what's going to happen. This is what is happening. We see it, and don't you understand? His roots are dried below, his branch is cut off above. Memory of him perishes from the earth, and he has no name abroad. The earth here is not the globe as we know it, but the land or country. So memory of him perishes from the country. He has no name abroad. So it doesn't matter where he is, there is no hope for him. He is driven from light into darkness and chased from the inhabited world. He has neither offspring nor posterity among his people, nor any survivor where he sojourned. Those in the west are appalled at his fate. Those in the east are seized with horror. Surely such are the dwellings of the unjust, and this is the place of him who does not know God. And so Bildad has absolutely painted Job as a wreck. He's absolutely finished. And so we'll take up Job's fifth speech next time in Job chapter 19.